So last year I didn't do so hot at the Nationals. Looking back at pictures and videos of me riding at that time, my technique was terrible. Growing up, I'd never really had bad technique, but it seemed like as I got faster, my technique got worse, which is kind of weird. So for these first few weeks of me riding before the Nationals, I'm gonna be really concentrating on my technique. So each time that I ride, I will be focusing on a certain aspect of my technique, and every time that I do that, I'm gonna make a video of what I'm working on. So I'm fixing my technique, and in the process, hopefully helping you guys fix your technique. This week, probably the next couple weeks, and the entire time I'm riding from here on out, I'm gonna be mostly working on my stand-up technique when I'm standing up. And you can call this the attack position if you would like. Whenever you're standing up on a dirt bike, you should be in the attack position or a variant of it. And this is something that I wasn't doing. I have pictures of me going into a corner at Millville in the mud where I was not in the attack position at all. I have pictures of me at Indiana going over a single, doing some stupid little scrub, definitely not in the attack position. I have videos of me from my vlog in, what was that, November, of me going into a corner, not in the attack position. So this is something that I really need to work on. And probably for me, the worst is when I'm going into a corner. I'm in a very, very bad position. I'm in this position. Rounded shoulders, rounded butt, like this. No, no, no. You gotta be in this position. So the attack position, it's from your feet to your head. Every single part is involved. It's not like certain aspects like keep your elbows up, look ahead, squeeze. It's everything. So just like every other sport, pretty much, it starts with your feet. If your feet aren't right, the rest of your body isn't gonna be right. Your feet have to at least be straight, if not a little bit pointed in. You gotta be on the balls of your feet. Literally every sport, you have to be on the balls of your feet. So why would motocross be any different? Your ankle kind of acts as suspension. So if you're on your heel, your ankle doesn't get to flex at all. So you have to be on the ball of your foot in order to get just that little bit of flexion that your ankle has. So first, with your feet, ball of your feet, probably the most important. And then second off, at least be straight with your feet. Don't be duck-footed. It all comes down to being able to squeeze the bike. None of what I'm saying is new. That's because this is the right thing to do. So you can even test this yourself. If you stand up and you go duck-footed, if you put your feet out and you bend your knees go out. So every time you bend your knees on a dirt bike, your knees are gonna go out and you won't be squeezing the bike. If your feet are straight, you bend your knees, they go forward. So at least you can kind of squeeze when you bend your knees, at least they're staying in the same spot. But if you're just a little bit pigeon-toed, if your toes are just pointed in slightly, when you bend your knees, they automatically come in and touch each other. So just by pointing your toes in just a little bit, you're automatically squeezing the bike. You have no choice, your knees go in. This is not something that I really need to work on. My feet are most of the time fine, especially when I'm standing up. I have a problem when I'm sitting down, but that's not what we're working on today. For me, that's not something I need to work on, but I thought I'd throw it out there. What I really need to work on is a hunched back and rolled hips. So when you do a hip hinge, you're supposed to bend at your hips. And that's no different on a dirt bike. When you bend over to grab the handlebars, you should be bending from your hips. Your butt should be out, literally as far as you can reach it, and your back should be straight. But me, I have a big problem with when I bend over that my back rolls, my hips become locked, and that's not good because, again, everybody says this, you have no separation from your lower to your upper body. When AJ Catanzaro talks about when you bend at the hips, when you're doing a normal hip hinge with your butt out, you can wiggle at your hips. So whatever your bike's doing, if it goes out sideways, your hips can go with it, but your upper body stays straight. And also, if you're bending at the hips and you're like this, whatever your bike's doing underneath you doesn't get transferred forward and back very much into your upper body. But if your hips are rolled under and you're hunchbacked, everything gets transferred into your upper body too. I forgot about this too. AJ Catanzaro also talks about your knees behind your toes. This is something that I think you should take with a grain of salt. For a beginner, yeah, definitely always try to keep your knees behind your toes. That will help you immensely with the cue that you can say in your mind to be like, are my knees behind my toes? No? Okay, get them back. And that'll really help the rest of your body. For me, that only really works if I'm going in a straight line. I've noticed that even if I am hips out, everything else is good. If I'm standing up going through a turn, my knees seem to go in front of my toes, and that's not something that I can really fix. So for me, the knees behind the toes thing, yeah, it can be important and it can work, but that's one that I think you can kind of mess around with, and it's not as important as the rest. And then I've kind of already talked about this, but your back needs to stay straight. And even if you want to arch your back a little bit, that's fine too, but at least straight. Just try not to do this. This is probably where I ride at most of the time, and that's not good. I need to ride like that. Hips out, back straight, and then elbows up. If your elbows are down here, that doesn't work. When you're going into a corner, you want your elbows up, not too far though, because if your elbows are too far up, all the force is going to be going into your thumb instead of into your hand like this. And if your elbows are down, then it's all going into your hand and it's not being transferred straight through your arm. So your elbows up, not too high, not too low. And then lastly, you got to look ahead. You should always be looking ahead anyways. This isn't something that's just for the attack position. This is something that you should always be doing. Always look ahead. And when you put all that together, that's the attack position. And then obviously that position will change depending on what you're doing. For me, if I'm going down a straightaway with no rollers or anything like that, I am very far over the front of the bike, but you still should at least have a straight back. And that means that my knees will probably be in front of my feet. But like I said, that one is one that you can kind of play around with. When you're going through sand whoops or regular whoops, obviously your weight's off the back of the bike, but still your back needs to be straight and your hips out. When you're going into a corner, into braking bumps, you're pretty much in that same body positioning. When you're going over a jump, your body positioning is neutral on the bike, not too far back, not too far forward, just nice and neutral on the bike. I will say, however, though, that there are some riders who can get away with riding how I do. And the rider that comes to mind is Garrett Marchbank. He really doesn't have the best riding style, but as we saw, he just destroyed everybody at Daytona. He was going so fast and he looked awesome, even though his technique was not the best. So some riders can make it work, others they have to ride in the attack position. All right, sorry, my camera died. This is a couple days later, but like I was saying, some people can get away with riding not in the attack position, others can't, like myself. And if you're still looking for different examples of people that are really good in the attack position, if you're somebody tall like me, I would say look at somebody like Dean Wilson. He is pretty much always in the attack position. If you're a medium-sized dude, I'd say look at somebody like Roxon maybe. He's always in the attack position and probably the best example out of anybody. He has to ride like that because his arm and his wrists are so jacked up that he has to ride in that really strong position just to be able to pretty much even ride. And then if you're a smaller dude, I'd say maybe somebody like Justin Cooper. He's sick, always in the attack position. A great example. Hopefully you learned something in this video, and if there's anything that you would like me to go into deeper detail on, any aspect of the attack position, I can totally do that. If there's anything else other than the attack position that you would like me to go over, I will be going over other things like sitting position and corners, all that stuff, because that's another thing that I need to work on. So I will be doing a video on that as well. But like I said, if there's anything else that you want me to go over, I definitely can. Like I said, hopefully you guys learned something in this video, and I hope you're staying safe in this crazy quarantine social distancing stuff. And I hope to see you in another video. Bye.